How's it going, gang? It's a final render here, and in today's video we're going to be discussing two interesting Fallout 76 news stories that have popped up in the last 48 hours, one of which is to do with Amazon leaking something again, and the other one is from the Inside the Vault article, which actually poses some very interesting questions about the future of Fallout 76. But before we get into that, remember guys, I asked you guys in the last video that I wanted to get 50 more subscribers to get us up to 62,000 subs within 4 days, and you know what? You did it in about 8 hours. We got an extra 100 subscribers in that 8 hours or so. So thank you very much, guys. We are now over 62,000 subscribers. That is really, really cool. Thank you very much for doing that. Let's hit a new goal before E3. Let's see if we can hit 62,150 subscribers before E3. We will be live streaming E3 on this channel for you guys to watch. You'll be able to watch it with me, everyone in the chat, and we may even have some guests along the way. So please make sure to tune in to the Bethesda E3 live stream on this channel, which will take place on Sunday 5 PM Pacific time, and also on Monday morning at 1 AM for us Brit users. Gosh, that's going to be a late morning, but it's going to be fantastic. I'm really looking forward to watching the stream with you guys, and we get to see if any of the stuff we talk about in this video comes to fruition. So let's start our video by talking about the recent Amazon leak. A couple of people have already made videos on this, but I do think it is a very interesting thing that has occurred. So the gist of the story is, in the last few days there have been some special Bethesda products that have had placeholders placed on amazon.co.uk that are available for people to see. These products are currently unavailable, as you would expect, and they are all called Bethesda Dummy 2019, with a certain number associated with it, and also a specific console, in this case being the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, nothing actually related to the Nintendo Switch on that front. And when you actually go onto these product pages, there is actually only one which is still active right now, and that one which is active says it is actually listed as a media accessory. So this is very interesting actually, because seeing as there isn't really any meaningful information on these placeholders, we don't really know what it is. It is listed as a media accessory, which could mean it is just, say, a Fallout themed controller for an Xbox or a PlayStation. Or it may just be that it just simply says media accessory because they haven't changed it. It could be a brand new game entirely. And here you'll be able to see all the various versions of Special Edition, Regular Edition, and Super Deluxe Edition for PlayStation 4 and also Xbox One. But something which I think is very strange about this as well is that this actually isn't the first time this has happened on Amazon. Just a few days ago, I believe, there actually was a leak for Watch Dogs Legions, and that turns out to be true. So there actually is a possibility that these may actually be brand new games by Bethesda. It will be very interesting to see if these original dummy pages suddenly become filled with information the moment E3 ends in just a few days, because these may be brand new video games. And there are some other things that could be as well. Some people are speculating they may just be gift cards, for example. So you can get Atom gift cards, or maybe even Bethesda.net gift cards. And to tell you the truth, this really isn't that ridiculous a scenario. There are plenty of games and plenty of services which actually sell their digital currencies on stores like Amazon, or even just in an actual physical shop. But that being said though, if you actually look at some of the other ones, in particular Grand Theft Auto here for example, that is not listed as a media accessory. So I don't really know if that's true. Again, it could just be that they haven't filled in the information. It would make sense why there are so many listings if these actually are Atom points, because you would need 4 listings for PlayStation 4 and 4 listing also for Xbox One. So that would actually make a lot of sense why there are so many, right? Because this can't mean that there are just dozens of games coming out. This can't mean that there are like 3 or 2 games coming out. But that being said though, it's still possible if you take into account Deluxe Edition, Regular Edition, and Special Edition. So if these potentially are new games, what could they potentially be? Well, realistically speaking, they could be games which are announced at this E3. Now, some people may say, why can't they possibly be things like Doom Eternal or Wolfenstein Youngblood? Well, the reason that is because they actually already have their own Amazon listings already. You can go and see them. They're there just fine. These are completely new items. But the games they could be, one, they could be something to do with Tango Gameworks. Tango Gameworks is the company which produced The Evil Within and The Evil Within 2, and we haven't heard from them since The Evil Within 2 was actually released. So they've been working on something. we just don't know what it is. And around this kind of time period would be when we get an announcement or even a very soon launch date for whatever it is that Tango Games is working on. I don't know if it would be Evil Within 3 or if it would be an entirely new franchise. We honestly don't know at this stage, but they have been very quiet for a very long time, so it would make sense. Another possibility is that it could be something from Arcane Studios. Arcane Studios are the ones who made the Dishonored franchise, and also, of course, they made Prey. And it definitely could be something from those guys. They haven't actually released a game since Prey. They did release the Mooncrash DLC for Prey. That was announced at the last E3. So they actually haven't made a new game in quite a while. It's still perfectly feasible that they could actually be releasing something as well, or at least announcing something. Just because these dummy products are here doesn't mean they're actually going to be available. One of these dummy products could actually say it's coming out next year, for example. So we don't really know if it's coming out anytime soon. We just know that there is plenty of room for maybe 2 games coming out from Bethesda Softworks, which I think is going to be very, very cool. Also, an important thing to note is that this is Bethesda as a whole, so it isn't necessarily Bethesda Game Studios. So this isn't necessarily going to be Fallout 4, or it's not necessarily going to be Fallout 76, or even necessarily going to be related to Elder Scrolls even. It just means that it is by Bethesda, which is obviously Arcane Studios, it's Tango Games, it's id Software. There's plenty of studios underneath Bethesda's reign which are not exactly tied to Bethesda Softworks, so it could be any of those companies, and there are plenty of companies in there which haven't released a game in a while. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens with these product listings after E3. And our next bit of news is much less speculative. This is going to be looking at the new Inside the Vault, which has just been released by Bethesda, and this is actually very interesting. They go into a lot of detail about patch 10, and something which they are very keen to mention is that a lot of the updates coming out in patch 10 are all going to be focused around combat and improving the actual shooting mechanics of Fallout 76. Now don't get me wrong, the shooting mechanics in Fallout 76 are much better than what they were in Fallout 3 and New Vegas. Fallout 4 kind of overhauled the entire shooting, but there is still definitely a lot of room to improve with the shooting inside Fallout 76. It's definitely not a Counter-Strike, for example. You know, there is definitely a lot of ways that the shooting mechanics can be a little bit quicker, a little bit more responsive, and just a little bit more reactive in general. So on that note, a lot of the updates coming out in patch 10 are going to be all about the combat in-game, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see how this affects the game. And also, something else which I probably should mention is that this is just talking about the updates they are bringing in patch 10. It doesn't actually include any bug fixes, but that's because these aren't patch notes. This is the Inside the Vault, so they're only telling us about stuff which is going to be added to the game, not what stuff is going to be fixed to the game. So, let's take a look at what they are doing. Firstly, they are going to be adding a show damage numbers to the game. This is a really interesting thing, actually. I had no idea that this is something that could come to Fallout 76. Basically, when you shoot an enemy, it will have a small little number saying how much damage that shot did to that enemy. This is actually a very common thing for a lot of RPGs to have. I'm looking at things like Borderlands, for example. They've always had this kind of idea of showing how much damage you do per shot. And it has actually been absent from Fallout pretty much since the original games, really, because it actually did tell you how much damage you did with that shot at the bottom of the screen in the original isometric games, of course. But in this case, we now have the numbers popping up on screen. Now, an important thing to note with this as well is that this is entirely optional. It will be off by default, and you can turn it on and off in your options menu, and it will be separate for both adventure mode and for survival mode. So therefore, if you want survival mode to be a bit more hardcore, you can not have the numbers showing, for example, but have them showing in adventure mode. Very nice little thing overall. I don't know if I'll really have it, but I am very curious to know what people who do videos on weapon damage and kind of overall min-maxing builds will think of this, because I actually do have a Furious Handmade, and I don't actually know how much more damage it does after every consecutive hit, with the whole thing with Furious being every time you hit someone, the next shot does more damage. I would really like to know the actual damage statistics on what my gun does. And overall, I just think it's a pretty thing. I think it looks cool, but as I've said, it's not for everyone, and it is entirely optional, and it is off by default. Next up, we have Keep Your Weapons Drawn. This is a system to where you are able to cancel holstering your weapon simply by firing it. This is something which I didn't actually realise wasn't something you could do in Fallout 76 until someone's actually pointed it out to me. But yeah, if you go to put a weapon away, you will put that weapon away and then you'll have to draw it again in order to fire. But in this case, you'll be able to cancel that animation and just start firing again. The gun is still in your hand after all. There's no reason to say you can't quickly pull it up and fire it. And that's exactly what they are doing here. So that's a nice little feature. It means it will be a little bit quicker, a little bit more responsive. You can react a bit quicker. Next up, we have Take Aim with Confidence. This is a really cool thing. It just speeds up the amount of time it takes to aim down sights and in particular to peer into scopes, which I think is a really nice addition because it actually does take quite a bit of time for you to scope into a weapon. Whilst it's true that in real life, it isn't exactly immediate, you know, it does take a second for your eye to adjust and stuff like that, but that being said though, it is just nice that it is quicker overall in order to zoom in with a scoped weapon. It means that people who have scoped weapons will be much more able to react quickly, which I think is a very nice thing in the game. And also, speaking of course of aiming, they are also adding some new red dot or holographic sights to some of the weapons. In particular, they are adding little aiming sights to the Gatling weapons, with the exception of the Gatling laser, that already has them, the minigun, the broadsider, the 50 cal machine gun, the auto grenade launcher, the Fat Man, the harpoon gun, and the paddle ball are all getting reflex or red dot sights of some kind. This is actually so good. I have very recently made my building character fully maxed out on heavy weapons, and I actually have an amazing 50 caliber machine gun, but there are no sights on it. So it's pretty interesting that actually the moment I start to actually make my character all about heavy guns, that's when they start to bring out these new weapon upgrades. So I'm really happy about that. Really nice thing to have. And overall, I just think it's nice that we get more customizable options for our weapons, which I think is very cool. And next up, we have something called Run and Gun, and this is where you are able to very quickly and easily just run and do other actions whilst sprinting. In other words, you will be able to sprint immediately after firing a ranged weapon, and sprinting will cancel an animation. In other words, this basically means sprinting will now take precedence over any other animation, because you really don't want to have to finish a reloading animation in order to run away from fire. If someone's shooting at you, you need to get out of there. So therefore, it's really cool that we can just quickly sprint in order to cancel those animations, which I think is a really nice thing, will really help speed up the gameplay for a lot of combat. And also, finally, we do have an extra addition which isn't too special, but you will also now be able to adjust the look sensitivity for the Y and the X axis. So this basically means even if you are on a controller or if you're on a PC, you'll very quickly and easily be able to line up a target, which I think is a very nice thing. Anything which makes the game more responsive is ultimately a good thing. But then again, there are also some people looking at this and they are thinking, why would they bring out these mechanics now? It's very strange that these are fundamental shooting mechanics to the game which help improve it, but why weren't they introduced sooner if that's the case? The game has been pretty stable technically for a while now, so they could have brought these out sooner. Well, a lot of people are speculating that with the rumours that the new Nuclear Winter will actually have much harder combat and even more PvP modes, that they are essentially getting the game ready to have much more hardcore PvP combat, because PvP combat in 76 often does rely on VATS a little bit too much, so therefore having much more responsive controls like this means that you would actually be able to have much more responsive combat, or even more so, be able to take on much more enemies at once. Many people are saying this means a Battle Royale mode or a Team Deathmatch mode is confirmed if they are now all of a sudden putting so much emphasis on improving the shooting mechanics. That being said though, that could just be reading into it a bit too much. If there is a way to improve the shooting mechanics, they should just improve the shooting mechanics, whether if there's PvP or Battle Royale mode at all, you know what I'm saying? So overall, I think it's just a nice thing to have the shooting mechanics improved, and I really can't wait to try out some of the new things, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the damage details that some of the weapons I have do with this new ability to see the damage numbers displayed in-game. Alright gang, so thank you very much for watching this video. This has been a very interesting news video. Lots of speculation in this video, which I think is something very nice. It's fun to speculate every now and then. Just don't get your hopes up too much about good things, and don't get too angry about stuff that is negative, because it hasn't happened yet. speculating is fun. Healthy speculating is enjoyable. So thank you very much for watching this video, people. Remember to check out all the cool Patreon people in the description below who have supported the channel with their financial donations. You yourself, of course, can also do the same. Remember to check out the YouTube members as well. And of course, guys, remember, we are streaming Bethesda's E3 when it is live. We will be starting our stream at 5 PM Pacific time for the United States, and we'll be starting our stream for 1 AM on Monday for the British users. So Sunday 5 PM for Americans on the Pacific coast, and also 1 AM for the UK users on Monday. Thank you very much for watching. I've been the Final Render, and you've been the audience. Bye bye for now.